back to the post-race show here on Hitting the Apex, French Grand Prix. As you posted a little while ago, very very bizarre, very disappointing for. Oh, it depends on who. Well, I think it's very disappointing for two teams and pretty exciting for one, and that being Mercedes. So, without further ado, interesting. It was a very bizarre race. Still, again, Ferrari being Ferrari with bad strategy. Leclerc making a mistake, whether it was his throttle, maybe whether it was him. I just don't understand what the hell he was doing there. That caused him to make that mistake and crash into the wall. But a squandered opportunity to get back into the championship series, and it looks like now, Vish, you mentioned it. It looks like this is, basically the season is over when it comes to the drivers' standings, right?
Yeah, it feels over. A lot can happen. Obviously, it just takes one Red Bull DNF to hand the points back, and everyone's had reliability. But if you look, we're about to hit. There's one more race, then winter break. But if you look at the who's more likely to have more reliability issues the rest of the year, it's probably Ferrari at this point. I mean, we noticed, Zhou stopped as well. Could have been his Ferrari engine. They just don't appear to have the reliability. But this time, according to Leclerc himself, this was just his mistake. And, you can't do that when you're trying to win the championship. And he was in control, and it's just
exactly, especially when you had fought off Verstappen those first couple of laps, and then you were kind of starting to build up a little bit of a gap, right? It started to get to like 1.5 and 1.6, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but initially it was less than a second, and DRS was there for Verstappen to take, and he fought him off.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, now we have 2020 hindsight, and we know this was a one-stop race. And Verstappen stopped really early. Now, he would have been able to he did run to the end on those tires anyway, because he did not pit in the safety car. So he would have been able to finish. That wouldn't have been the issue. But, even if Leclerc came out behind Max, his tires would have been so much fresher. He easily would have repassed him. There was zero reason to try and maintain tenths of a second in terms of gap. Let Max work his way through some of that traffic he was out behind.
Right.
Even if he closes the gap up where you pit and come out behind him, you're going to have, 10 laps fresher tires? That's not going to hold up over the rest of the race, and he would have easily won. And instead, he looked like he was trying to he was almost doing qualifying level laps of pushing, and he threw it away. You just got to manage the race better than that, and he did. And it's really disappointing, like you said, just for everyone. Obviously, more so in your case, but for everyone, when there was a title fight on here. And the other thing, just from a Ferrari standpoint, that was the worst possible time for them, because Sainz was trying to run long on those hard tires, and he had to come in, and obviously you have to use both compounds, so he had to go to mediums.
Right
now, he should have still been able to finish the race on those mediums and finished in third, but I don't understand why they pitted him. That's a whole other thing. But even if he got another 10 laps or so on those hards he started on, then it would have been a no-brainer. So just really bad timing. In fact, if there had not been a safety car, he likely finishes higher up than he did.
Yep.
Just because he was charging through the field on those hard tires, and the gaps for Sainz were not that bad. Usually, by the time you're done overtaking everyone, you're like 30 seconds off like the top 3 or 4, and so you're basically screwed unless there's a safety car. He was only like 5 to 10 seconds off, and you saw how much pace he had. He easily would have eaten that up. He was that much faster than both Mercedes and Checo, who for some reason was slower than the Mercedes. So he easily could have, if Leclerc doesn't crash, Leclerc wins, Max second. You could have seen Sainz in third.
And that's that he. And by the way, we didn't even discuss this because we didn't know until after he took a full grid penalty. You know what I mean? To start off the race to begin with. So I think he was probably the faster Ferrari.
Yeah, he was. One of the reasons he was the fastest
new
car
engine,
on the track. Right? Yeah, everything was new. That's why I got the penalty. But no, but he did it correctly. And we actually talked about, when George Russell made that mistake in Silverstone and kind of hit Zoe off after Latifi had passed him. Carlos played the long game here. He started on the hards. He actually dropped back. Carl Magnussen also took a bunch of penalties during the back, immediately charged up the field, and then had to pit early, lost it. Sainz managed his tires, methodically worked his way through the field. You're in the faster car, it'll come to you. 53 laps is a long time, and the race will come to you. He did all that expertly, and then Ferrari just threw it away. They were asking him to pit as he was passing.
Yeah,
and he's like,
are you kidding
not right
me?
now, people. I'm sitting here taking third.
I mean, and that just tells you, and we'll probably move off this topic after this, but that just tells you that something's going on with Ferrari, that they're not. I mean,
this is quintessential Ferrari.
Yeah,
this is what they're known for doing this.
How are you going to tell your driver who is in a battle at that very exact moment trying to overtake to pit? Like, what are you looking at? What is the Ferrari team looking at that point?
The whole process there was insane, because first they said correctly. They started out correct. In fact, if you look down our tweets, the first thing we put out there was, "Hey, this is they're like Sainz wants to pit. He's absolutely wrong. Ferrari is making the right call here, make him stay out." Because remember, Sainz like, "I need to pit. I can't pass this guy," and they're like, "No, stay out," which was the right call. Then he finally is like, "Okay, let me see if I can pass him." He's finally doing it. Then they're like, "Go pit." What in the world? And then they pitted him anyway, and it just, I mean, he made, I guess the only possible explanation for that is because without that pit, he does have the 5-second penalty, so he would have had to open up a 5-second gap. Now he was already 3 to 4 seconds ahead of Russell. Now Russell had closed up on Checo at that point, because when Checo and Sainz were battling, Russell opportunistically, smartly moved up and, "You guys can fight here going slower. I'm going to catch up to you." And he was coming at them with momentum. So would he have held off? Because those two ended up basically tied within a second. Would he have opened the 5-second gap up? If there's no way he's going to be able to do that and hold it, remember, if his tires fade the last few laps, then he ends up 5th anyway, which is where he ended up. And by doing what they did, he did get the fastest lap point. So in theory, there is a scenario where he got an extra point by pitting, but it felt an awful lot like he was going to close up on Hamilton versus the other two closing up on him.
But also because he pitted, he got that 5-second penalty.
Well, no, he would have had it anyway. They would have just added it to his time. So he needed to open.
It was the pit after, right?
They would have added it after the race. He needed to open up. That's the thing. It wasn't as straightforward as he was in third and he just needed to hold third. He needed to hold third with the 5-second gap to fourth. Otherwise, he would have been fourth. And given that fourth and fifth were right next to each other, he really needed a 5-second gap to both of them. Otherwise, he probably would have been fifth, which is where he ended up anyway.
Yeah.
So the only benefit to pitting was really the extra point. Unless, again, we don't know this. They were like, those tires are going to delaminate or something if you don't pit. Yeah. We don't have that information. I doubt Ferrari.
But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if Ferrari has it exactly.
But at the time, he was running faster than anyone else on track with the hards. So it's hard to imagine they would have fallen off so quickly that he needed to pit there.
This was the best drive of his year of the season so far for Sainz. I mean, just the way that he drove was unbelievable.
He was brilliant. His overtakes were brilliant. You saw how when he made those passes, the way he set them up over multiple turns, like that. People need to watch that in terms of how you drive and how you overtake correctly. Because we saw Russell do it. We saw, I think it was Gasly try it, where they're just like, "Oh, I'm close enough." Late lunge, complete impatience, cause either a wreck or someone to have to swerve off the track to avoid it. You would see Sainz close up, not go for the overtake because he's too far away, but use that momentum, force the other guy to defend, go offline so he doesn't have optimal traction coming out of the next turn. So he's setting up 2-3 turns in front of where he's actually going to make the pass. It was really brilliant driving, and yeah, no, I didn't check the voting. If he didn't win driver of the day,
he did.
But that was a clinic in how you overtake. You don't just rush it in there. You patiently work it and you set it up over multiple turns, sometimes over multiple laps, and then you move through. And that's how he was able to overtake cars like Checo that was faster than him on the straight. So like by setting up over multiple turns, getting better traction, it was really a brilliant drive.
And we spoke about this on the show. We said if Sainz can continue to drive the way he's driving and can stay hot, and he's going to be competitive and he's going to be able to challenge some of these guys. I don't know if he'll get back into the the race per se, but but he's still driving really well. And if it wasn't for the grid penalty, I think that you were still talking about Carlos Sainz
Yeah,
as
and if
having
you
a great
recall,
drive.
he was on it this weekend all
He
weekend. Now,
was.
again, how much of that's because he's got the new engine parts? Because part
Well,
of the
I'm
reason for
sure
the
a lot
penalty
of it.
is,
Yeah.
but you saw in qualifying, he was fastest until the third session where he didn't even try a lap because he was just towing Leclerc.
Right.
But I mean, what we saw, and this is a Ferrari. Ferrari is just a mess. Like they're underperforming their car. They're basically doing the opposite of Mercedes. They're completely underperforming their car, and you saw it this weekend. Like you saw it clear, like for the top three teams, Max, the clear number one, so much faster than Checo. Lewis, clear number one, so much faster than Russell. Right, they're both up front. Yeah, Max was ended up 12 seconds because Lewis backed off at the end, but they were about 5 to 10 second gap between Max and Lewis. Then another 10 seconds back to Russell and Perez. Like you're seeing that, and then Ferrari's lead driver is making rookie mistakes and throwing it in the wall.
Yep.
Right. I mean that's the difference. If Leclerc is the number one driver, you got to act like you got to be faster and better. And
100%.
it's always something with Ferrari.
Always.
It's frustrating because you want I'm not obviously not a Ferrari fan. I'm a McLaren fan, and Ferrari was rival back in the day when McLaren actually competed for winning. But you want them to do well because you want that battle up front to last the whole season. And this type of stuff, just Max would never do that.
No.
Lewis
well,
would never
you
do
saw
that.
it, right? He's out in front now, and he just.
Well, I mean, once Leclerc threw that away, he's like, I could drive in reverse and win this race. I'm so much faster than everyone that's left in the race. But last year you saw Lewis and Max literally not give an inch, and the only time they were crashes when they hit each other. They were not throwing it away. They were not spinning off from the lead and throwing away points like that. Although I guess Lewis sort of did when that brake magic stayed on in Azerbaijan. He just went straight on the straight. But
Verstappen doesn't do that. He doesn't do it at all.
No, and that's where we've talked a lot about Leclerc's temperament and what he was doing on lap 18 or 19 of a 53 lap race, thinking he needed to, and after the race saying I was pushing for extra time and I was on the limit. Why are you on the limit at that point? And I think it's just it's knowing how to manage a race, and it's just in Austria the throttle issue. So if it's not him, it's something mechanical. I mean, Sainz blew up in Austria as well. It's just they just cannot get it together, and it might be too late now.
Yep, might be too late. Well, I know you mentioned this a little bit earlier about the swerving and overtaking and all that. I'm gonna admit that this was the first time all season that I could honestly say that George Russell had a hell of a drive.
He did. I mean,
I think that last, obviously Checo screwed up. Also, he wasn't ready.
I don't understand what the hell. That's going to be an interesting debrief.
Yeah, I'd like to see what happens there. But look, Russell took advantage the right way there, with his driving. Right, it wasn't necessarily, I'm going to pit and I'm going to wait for the. I'm not. He took off and he skinned them. Right off the line. That was impressive.
And one of the things we kind of forget with him is how young he is. This is his first time in a competitive car because he easily, Checo's the reason they both didn't end up wrecked with Russell getting a penalty for the next race, because that after Sainz overtook Checo, there was that sequence where Russell used that to close the gap up, and he was at that point probably about, which you can tell after the virtual safety car, probably about the same pace as Perez. But he sent it up the inside. There was no room there. There was way too late in the corner. And then he was well behind going into the corner and went straight across and used the entire track. And the point that he was on the opposite corner line, that is not really acceptable driving. And Checo, of course, had to go off.
Right.
And then for him to spend the next 2 or 3 laps complaining that they didn't give Checo a penalty, I'm like, dude, and his racing, that's why Toto came on twice. He was like, just pass him. It was, he didn't want to be it was your fault, dude. But that's so the race engineer was
stop bitching and just
well, the race engineer, first Toto's like, you can still pass him. And he's like, yeah, but he's got, and then the race engineer came on and said, you were behind. He's like, no, my front tire was next to his back tire. I was like, dude, you went straight across the corner and shoved him off the track. And if Checo had just tried to take the corner like normally, it would have been a huge wreck.
Yeah.
But to your point, he finally, after May the virtual safety car calmed him down or whatever, he calmed down and then caught like he set that up through set like the end of the virtual safety
Beautifully.
car. They were
Yeah, he
talking
did.
about how he had because I mean this is totally defeats the purpose, and you kind of wonder if they should put like a limiter on it like they do in the pit lane where you just cannot exceed a certain mile per hour. But what they actually do is they do the sector times. As long as the sector time is under the delta, they give you a sector time you have to hit.
Right.
Then you're fine. So what Russell did is he went very slow at the beginning of the sector. So when they average out the sector time, he's still legal to virtual safety car, and he was driving way faster than the limit, which is why he pounced on Checo, who appeared to be parked on the side of the road for some reason.
Yeah, I was what the hell's going on here? But he did it. He took advantage of it.
And then Checo assumed the role of whining, saying Russell was going off track. I didn't see any of that to like defend.
Well,
I thought Russell was fine in his defense, and I thought he was doing again good job of putting his car where it needed to be. He knew the Red Bull was faster. He knew the overtaking points, and he made sure he maintained enough of a gap to not allow the overtake. Checo got a couple of sniffs in there, but very good defensive drive. That was the second time he did a really good job holding Sainz up for several laps, and then Sainz kind of, like I said, set him up over multiple corners. But yeah, Russell had a really strong race.
So again, it was Max in P1, Hamilton P2, and the
Russell
other
in
Mercedes,
P3.
George Russell.
Two Mercedes on the podium.
Two Mercedes on the podium. First time this season. That's good. Good for them. Good. I'm happy for them. They, like you said, they have been overperforming that car, as Hamilton and Russell. But Hamilton lately, and I said it. I mean, Hamilton's on a roll, man. Like he is driving great. Vince, did you freeze up on me? I think it did freeze up. Vish might have frozen, but Hamilton had a great drive. Again, in P2, I think that of course with Leclerc, crashing out and not being a factor, I think that it changed everything up for the Mercedes. So I think that it was interesting to see what what they were able to do. Oh no, the power went out. The power went out over in with Vish, but anyways, I don't even know if he's still there. No, he's not there. But we'll probably end it here because we've got a big show. We've got a big show coming up on Wednesday, so we'll definitely check you guys out there. Make sure you tune in because we'll have the full recap on the French Grand Prix and move forward to the next one coming up. So we'll definitely keep you guys posted. And give me a second here if you guys don't mind. This is what happens when you go live and you kind of have some issues, but no big deal. No big deal. Again, your podium is Max Verstappen in P1, Lewis Hamilton in P2, and George Russell in P3. Rounding out the top five was Checo in P4 with, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Fernando Alonso in fifth. So, but at any rate, I think that we'll have a really nice recap with Vish and Moni on Wednesday for the French Grand Prix, and we'll do a full recap on what's going on. So I think Vish is coming up now, real quick, so we can end this for you guys. I think what was exciting to me was obviously the driver of the day, Carlos Sainz. Despite what Ferrari was doing, because I obviously have no idea what their thought process was, pitting him at the same time that he was trying to overtake Checo, and then again the next lap pitting him after he had already driven brilliantly and gotten past him. I think that if you keep him out there on the track a little bit longer, he's able to build up a gap, and could change some things. Whereas as opposed to taking the 5-second penalty on the pit, could have maybe wait until the end of the race and try to build a bigger gap there. So I think that Ferrari's going to have to really kind of go back to the drawing board there and figure out their strategies a little bit better. Leclerc is going to have to, step up his game, because I think at this point, Max and Red Bull is going to run away with it if they don't figure something out. And if Red Bull doesn't make a mistake, right? If Red Bull has some reliability issues, I think that at that point, that's the only opportunity for Ferrari to get back in it. But
Yeah, talk about reliability issues. I guess I'm powered by Ferrari here. I had an engine blowout.
No kidding, man.
After you did this morning, man. What is going on? We gotta switch to Mercedes engines. They're slower, but they work.
But they work and they're winning. I mean, they're on the podium. So what the hell? Yeah, I was just telling everybody, anybody that's watching, we'll have a big show for you guys on Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. here on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. We'll do a full recap of the French GP and kind of move forward to the last race, which is Hungary. Am I right?
Yep, Hungary, which is kind of this has got to be a Ferrari track. It is all twists and turns, not a very short straight, and that's it. This is okay. This is the time, man. This is the time. They gotta 1-2 this. They gotta 1-2 this. This is 100%. Like they should win this easily.
I can't get my hopes up. Look, I picked Max to win today, but then I got P2 and P3 for Ferrari. And
I can't remember who else I picked, but I picked Checo and I picked double DNF for Mercedes. So the rest of it's got it.
You picked Leclerc and Sainz also, so there you go. Yeah, I mean, unbelievable.
I mean, some of these picks we've a couple of times been, done in by they took a bunch of engine penalties after we made the picks, which, without knowing that.
I know.
But that's not. I mean, I think I might have just set a record for worst prediction there, but.
All right, everybody. Well,
and also just real quick before we wrap up, we were talking about how Alpine and McLaren were tied. Alpine is now in front. Alonso finished ahead of Norris, and then Ocon finished ahead of Ricciardo. So.
Fair enough. We'll see you guys on Wednesday for hitting the Apex at 9:30 p.m. here on the 5 Reasons Sports. Make sure you check us out on Twitter at F1_5 Reasons, and we will see you here on Wednesday at 9:30.